Good evening and welcome to the Democratic Voice. Thanks for tuning in with us, Democratic Voice. Thanks for tuning in with us this evening. It's been an exciting week as always in Colorado politics. Let's talk about El Paso County. In El Paso County, we now have candidates for most of the vacant seats. But if you're still out wanting to really get in, we need you to come in as a candidate. If you aren't interested in being a candidate, then come in and work for one of the candidates that we have. We have candidates that need your help. We as a Democratic Party need your help. So it's now time for you to make a commitment. Pick out one of the candidates that you like, and we'll go over the candidates later in the show and see which one you'd like to work with and for, and we will go out and get that person elected with your help. As I said, it's been an exciting week, and we expect it to get better. On the 4th of May now is going to be our county assembly, and at the county assembly, all of the delegates that are elected at the precinct caucuses, we want you there to specify which candidate for what chair or what seat you would like. So we very much now know that it's time to get out and get on with the program of electing Democrats in El Paso County. So when we elect Democrats in El Paso County, we will have a voice. This is the most important election that El Paso County has ever been in. Right now, we lead the United States Senate by one vote, only one vote. Now, Tom Strickland must be elected so we can have a little more breathing room in the Senate. So as you can see, our vote is so crucial in El Paso County that we could be the county that elects the person that is going to control the United States Senate. And when the Senate is controlled by Democrats, you know that means more progress for our people. Now, this can have worldwide ramifications because we must keep the Republicans in control, and as you know, the Bushmeister is the president and needs someone to have a check rein so we can make sure that everything is done correctly. In the state Senate, we control that by only one Senate vote. So we, again, in El Paso County can supply the people that elect the senator that's going to prove the margin so we as Democrats will hold a majority in the state Senate. Along with that, today our guest is Tony Marino, a candidate for Senate District 11. Tony is a proven winner. Let me tell you how much Tony is a proven winner. Tony Marino, who is a candidate for the Colorado State District, Senate District 11. Tony is a proven leader, Vietnam veteran, former police officer, business owner, and a father. Tony, you've told me that you think it's very important for the voters to know who the candidates will represent them are. And you mentioned that you spoke to a high school class last week. What did you talk about? And Tony, welcome this morning.
Well, thank you, Fred. Thank you for having me on the show. Last week I was invited to a high school class. High school students are reading a book about Vietnam, and one of their teachers asked me if I would come in and speak to the students and to answer questions about Vietnam and what happened there. I enlisted in the United States Marine Corps when I was 17 years old in 1965, and by the time I was 19, in fact, about 5 days after my birthday, my 19th birthday, I was on my way to Vietnam. That was in 1967. One of the chapters in the book with these high school students was about how you could really tell a war story, and it was a very good chapter. It explained about the war, and I started thinking about that and what I would tell these students. And while I was in Vietnam, I wrote letters home to my friends and to my family. I wrote letters home to my mother, a lot of letters. And I was fortunate in that because it's been 34 years and sometimes the memory goes a little bit. So I dug out, my friends and my mother were kind enough after all these years to have saved those letters. And I dug out some of the letters and went through them so that I could talk to those high school kids. And I really enjoy talking to high school students. They are so bright. They have so many good questions. They are just, it's just so much fun to talk with them and to get their questions. But about Vietnam, this letter was dated the 24th of August, 1967. And basically I wrote, "We had another mortar attack last night. Want to hear what happens in a mortar attack? Well, first, the siren in the hut area goes off. We can just barely hear it at the crash crew area. Anyway, when we're getting attacked, you can usually tell. Anyway, everyone on the base jumps in sandbag bunkers. Everyone except, yes, you guessed it, the crash crew. While everyone else is hiding in a hole in the ground, here they come, screaming, yelling, driving wildly, weaving all over the runway, the taxiways, putting out fires. It slightly resembles the clowns in the circus, only we're the most effective firefighting force in the world. During a mortar attack, it's the most dangerous thing you can do, but we're actually having a ball. I mean, it's really fun. None of us has been hurt so far. I guess we've got the good angel riding with us. Dodging mortar shells. It's not a great hobby, but it does. Other than that, not a lot happening." When I joined the Marine Corps, I went into the Marine Aviation Wing, and I trained as a crash, fire, and rescue man. And while I was in Vietnam, I was asked to work with the Sea Air Rescue crew. And in June of 1968, they asked me to go over and train the Sea Air Rescue helicopter people in Sea Air Rescue, since I was an aircraft crash rescue man. How to get the canopies open, what to do when the planes fell in the sea or on the ground. This was one of the really good things that happened in my life. The Marine Corps, when I was in boot camp, the Marine Corps taught me self-discipline, and Vietnam was an experience. One of the other things that happened, the high school kids wanted to know about the combat situations, and I said, well, I happened to be in Vietnam for the Tet Offensive, and on that night, the Viet Cong and the Republic of North Vietnam Army launched about 100 rockets in on the Chu Lai Air Base. And our job was to go out and to put the fires out, to rescue anybody who needed to be rescued, get a medevac. And what we did that night, when the rockets came in and set aircraft on fire, what we did that night was to get the crash trucks. There were napalm trailers that were burning. There were people in the revetment area where all the aircraft were, and our job was to go in and fight the fires, make sure those napalm bombs didn't explode, and to take care of everything that had happened that night. And that was a particularly memorable night. Later on, during about a month later, our entire unit was put in for a citation.
Yeah, Tony, I don't know if you know that I got this on you or not, but I would like to bring this to our readers. You know, when we talk about Corporal Anthony Claude Marino, United States Marine Corps, for outstanding achievement in the superior performance of his duties in the fields of professional achievement as set forth in the following citations. This Tony received, and let me tell you who it's from and what it's about. While serving as a member of the Chu Lai Air Base crash crew with Marine Air Base Squadron 13, Marine Aircraft Group 13, 1st Marine Aircraft Wing, in connection with operations against the enemy in the Republic of Vietnam, Corporal Marino performed his duties with exceptional professional skill and courage. During the early morning hours of 31 January 1968, the Chu Lai Air Base came under a heavy enemy rocket attack, setting 4 F-4 Phantom aircraft on the flight line of fire and igniting highly flammable materials in the ready equipment. Chokes me up even to read about it from my experiences in Vietnam. In an attempt to extinguish the flames and prevent the fires from spreading to other areas of the flight line, despite the additional hazards from fragments of exploding ordnance hit by enemy rockets, Corporal Marino resolutely disregarded his own safety to remain in the hazardous area and continue to employ his equipment against the raging fires for approximately an hour. In large measure, due to his prompt and heroic actions, the fires were successfully extinguished. 2 valuable aircraft were prevented from being completely destroyed. 24 500-pound bombs in the ready ammunition storage area failed to detonate due to the intense heat, and a burning napalm trailer was prevented from exploding. Corporal Marino's courageous actions, bold initiative, and selfless devotion to duty, despite extreme personal danger, undoubtedly minimize the effectiveness of the attack and reflect great credit upon himself, the Marine Corps, and the Naval Service. Corporal Marino is also authorized to wear the Combat V for the Secretary of the Navy, V.H. Krulak, Lieutenant General, United States Marine Corps. Again, you know, even though the many years that we've been out of Vietnam, when I run across a fellow veteran that was decorated in Vietnam, it brings back tears to my eyes. The things we saw in Vietnam we don't often talk about, so it brings me great honor to have you with us this morning, and you will please excuse me if I get teary-eyed at some of these things we do. Tony, what's the significance of the Combat V that we're talking about on this award you received?
Well, Fred, at the time, I was very much honored to receive that citation and the medal, and I didn't know much about it. Since then, there have been many situations, a couple of situations in the news, where people have claimed to have gotten a Combat V and they really didn't. And what I learned was that what it means is you came under enemy attack, that they were trying to kill you, that they were shooting at you somewhere, and you did a little bit more than your job, and I'm particularly proud of that. I had to grow up a little bit to realize the significance of some of this. But I do think it's important that the voters and the people out there learn about their candidates. It's one of the great things about this show is you have candidates and people on and you talk to them, and it's not just a sound bite. It's not just a quick quote. It's where they can learn about the people that want to represent them. So I think that's one of the real neat things about the show.
Great, Tony. We certainly appreciate you. And while we're talking about this, let me read to you out there something that one of your, I'd say opponents on the other side said about we Democrats. And it says, during the radio stint, Jones was asked whether he is a Republican. Of course he's a Republican, Jones said. Then on the air he quipped, the only thing we let Democrats do down here in El Paso County is pay taxes and buy goods. I hope you're going out and start settling them, partner, because you're going to need a job. Tony, we certainly appreciate having you with us, and with your background of service to not only to our nation, but as in the police area, we know you've done tremendous amount of work for our communities. Could you tell me now why you're running for public office?
Yes, Fred, I can. I ran for the Colorado Senate 6 years ago, and we did a good job. We didn't win, but we did a good job. And for the last 6 years, I've had many, many people come up and talk to me. Many of them were Democrats, a lot of them were Republicans, and many of them were unaffiliated voters. And they all asked me the same question. Their question was, who represents me? I would ask them questions about where they stood on an issue, what their concerns were. Many of them said their biggest concerns are education, educating our young people, education for our college students, which the state is extremely involved in. Lately, many people have said it's the economy. Our economy has slowed down, and whether we call it a recession, no matter what we call it, what we see is that people have lost some jobs. We need good jobs here in El Paso County. We need good jobs in the state of Colorado. The third thing that people ask me about is about our open space, our environment, about the beauty of where we live here in Colorado, about being able to go in the mountains and go hiking, to be able to see the mountains and be able to enjoy the wonderful things that we have here in El Paso County. And Fred, after I've talked to these people and listened to their concerns and the things that they want done, I've told them where I stand on the issues. And then what comes back is, well, I think you could represent me. I think you would be somebody who could represent my viewpoints in the Colorado legislature. I think you're somebody that feels the same way that I do, and somebody that shares my values and the things that I want for my kids. People have said to me, they want a good opportunity. They want their kids to have a good opportunity. I have never met anyone who hasn't said they want our children, our grandchildren, to have the finest education we can give them, because we all know that that education is going to be the key to the opportunity when these kids grow up to be good, solid, productive members of our community and of our society. After we had talked about these things and they'd asked who represented them, and then they said to me, it sounds like you represent me. When reapportionment came along and a lot of the districts got redrawn and I found that I was in a new district, I talked to many people in the community. I talked to the Democratic leadership, I talked to Republicans, I talked to unaffiliated voters, and they said, we really would like it if you ran. This would really be a good thing. And so I decided that, yes, I would do this. And I don't try to make any distinction about this. This is a job where your job is to serve the people and to represent them. This is not a job to go up and to be arrogant, to try to impose your views on the people in your district, but it's a job of serving people, and it is a job of representing them. And I'm fully aware of that. That's something that I would very much like to do. I would like to represent those viewpoints, all of those important issues, education, our economy, good jobs for people, and a good opportunity for our children and our grandchildren. So I think that's the long version of why I'm running for the Colorado State Senate again, as one of my good friends said just the other day.
I just did a disservice to you. You didn't tell me about your wife and children.
My wife and I have been married for 22 years. I have two sons, a 17-year-old and an 18-year-old. I am so proud of my entire family. My wife worked very, very hard in my election campaign in 1996, and she's working hard again for this. Both of my sons went out on street corners with me and waved at cars and walked door to door with me. They both enjoyed it quite a bit. They're great kids. They are the best kids around. My oldest son is graduating from high school in about another 6 weeks, and I'm so proud of him. He's going to go on to college. I'm very proud of that. Having a family has been one of the greatest things that's happened to me. Being a part of their lives and being a part of them growing up, them going through the education system, them having all the good things and some of the little problems that happen in that system. It's given me a good sense of what most families face here in El Paso County.
Great. I'm glad we get to talk about the thing you're most proud of, because Tony's family is a great family, and Tony, I just appreciate just when I meet with your family, they're great.
Well, thank you.
So, you know, when we talk about these things, while we were talking about your children, talk about the education. How you feel about the education in our state, what we could do to better the education.
Education is one of the very main things that people want to talk about. We have a good education system, and I think that the legislature is trying to make it better. And I think that it's important that they listen first to parents. Parents who talk to their children, who listen to their children, who talk to teachers and principals and people in the education system. So I think that's our first line of communication, is with those parents who talk to those people. One of the biggest issues that is an ongoing issue in our education system is smaller classrooms. And as much as the legislature has talked about CSAP tests and Amendment 23 that provided more money for education, that's still one of the most important issues for parents. They feel that if the classroom is smaller, their children are going to get a better education. That's one of those issues that I know the legislature wants to address. And right now, the legislature is struggling with a $13.6 billion budget. How do we make that money work? How do we make that money work for all of the things that the state has to take care of? Education, Medicaid, transportation, highways. These are all very, very serious issues. And the more I talk with people...
While we're talking about education, I would like to take this opportunity to talk about Colorado College and the incident that transpired on April Fool's Day in the paper there. And I think the president of the college has taken much appropriate action, but still more needs to be done in that area, so that when we talk about racism and things like that in El Paso County, it's just sometimes right below level, and it appears sometimes we need to take steps to make sure those things don't happen again. And that's where we as a Democratic Party stand on that. In education, you've said a lot about education, and we certainly appreciate your stance on education. How about transportation? Could you talk about transportation for a minute or so and your stance on transportation?
I can, Fred, and that's another issue that the people I've talked to, many of the people I've talked to have said that they are extremely concerned about. And when we talk about education in El Paso County, basically what we're talking about are roads and bridges. We have a bus system, but mass transit isn't one of those things that we think very much about. We're talking about roads. People need to be able to go on I-25 from the south side of town to the Air Force Academy and beyond. Our transportation, our road system here in Colorado is well behind where it should have been. And this is another issue that the legislature is working as hard as they can on. The governor wants a certain amount of money for transportation, and the senators and the representatives are trying to work this out. Most of the people I've talked to have said, don't take money out of education for roads. We want good roads. We have to have good roads. And the subject of roads goes into the issue of the economy. We need good roads for our economy to be strong. So the legislature has its hands full on these issues. How do they take a very certain amount of money with all of the laws that we have in place in Colorado? They can't raise taxes. Our legislators cannot raise taxes. Only a vote of the people, something I support wholeheartedly. If they take the money they have, how do they provide for all of the many things? Prisons, higher education, the education budget, all of the things some of the things that the federal government say we have to spend money on. And transportation is one of those things that we've got to look at and make sure that the funding for transportation is there, because as I said, this is very important to the economy.
It certainly is. And let's talk about borrowing Bill for a moment, if we may, while we're talking about transportation. Borrowing Bill borrowed money which our children's children will still be paying back from the highway funds to fund transportation, and all the time he's giving the big people in the state, the people with all the money, I guess, giving them tax breaks to bring the tax down. And now we're in a position where we can't run a deficit budget, but we cannot have all the funds that we need to do what is it. We need millions and millions and millions in transportation, in the highway funds and mass transit funds, which when he was running for office, the governor said we did not need, and he'd give it back to his friends. Now he gave it back. Now we don't have the funds to do those things with. So I would like to see those. I'm one of those really people that like to think out maybe 10, 20 years from now, when we need transportation on the Front Range, something that's going to get us from probably the borders with New Mexico to Wyoming. So it's lots of things that we need to do in the transportation area. But while we're talking about that, you have the day-to-day operations, and we people at the long-range thinkers, you got to think on what are we going to do about the economy to get the economy going when you get elected. We're talking about next January when you go in. Do you have any specific plans on the economy? And one other thing that I'd like to address while we're talking about it, and I ask all the candidates, water.
One of the very, very important questions right now in people's minds is the economy. Good jobs. Jobs where people feel good about going to work and where they make the kind of income they need to take care of their families. I have been extremely fortunate in talking with civic leaders, with leaders in our community here in El Paso County about jobs and about the economy. Those people all say the same thing. To have a strong economy, we need to keep the industry we have, and we need to attract new industry. And those things are all dependent on other issues. What kind of a higher education system do we have? When a big company like Intel, who relocated here, looks at our community, they don't just look at one or two things. They look at the entire community. They look at what kind of a quality of life do we have? What kind of education systems do we have? K through college. What kind of opportunities will the people have? What kind of roads do we have? What's our tax structure? Those are all very important issues, and I have been very fortunate to talk to civic leaders here in El Paso County about those issues. I have heard what they've said, and we agree on many of those issues, how to keep our economy strong and how to make it stronger. So that's one of the things that I feel that I can take with me to Denver, to the legislature.
Great, Tony. We certainly appreciate that. Now, how about, do you have a quick answer on water? What would you do about the water problem?
I was very lucky. In 1998, I worked with Senator Mike Feely in his bid for the governor's office, and we traveled all over the state and we looked at the water issues. Water is one of the most complex and one of the very most important issues facing Colorado. It's not a simple issue. It is one of those issues where most of our water here in El Paso County comes from the western slope. How do we ensure that? How do we guarantee that? How do we be fair to those people on the western slope? I don't think I can give you a quick answer, Fred, but I know that it's one of the things that is very serious, and I have studied it.
Great. Tony, you know, we are so proud to have you as our candidate, and you are the person that can go out, but we need your help. So could you give us a quick telephone number, Tony? Anybody wants to volunteer to work with Tony?
Our campaign phone number is 389-8000.
389-8000. So, fellow Democrats, let's get out and work for all Democrats. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week. Have a good week, fellow Democrats.